Good morning. Sean here at Mountains Garage. We got a little bit of snow last night. I roughed it out in the dark, and now I'm out here cleaning up. Got to clean off the vehicles. We got about 23 inches or so, but it's a beautiful morning. Got my boy helping a little bit, shoveling the porch. Just another day in Maine. It's a couple hours later. It's a beautiful sunshiny day, about 30 degrees now, much better than yesterday's whiteout conditions. We got about 23 inches of snow. Like I said, cleaning off the vehicles. I moved them out of that spot. Gives me a chance to establish my snow banks, so next time I know where they are. It's easy today with the sun out, but when it's snowing hard, it's hard to find stuff. I only have to hand shovel a few feet away from the house and the little porch over there, and this is the first storm since we did the front porch in 2013 that it actually blew in and covered it entirely. Typically it doesn't, but it did this time. This area here never gets a lot of sun, so I back drag, but icing becomes an issue. It's always not an ideal spot. If I ever position another house on a piece of property, having it facing north is always going to make a shadow here. It's not conducive. But yesterday during the storm, this hill isn't as bad as that hill, and this hill that comes up from the other garage. The first storm, I walked down, it was over my knees. This is about 8 o'clock in the morning. It was over my knees. I got in the tractor and I was able to do no problem. The stuff was just total fluff because it was only 18 degrees out. I came back to do the second round about 5 o'clock and I couldn't climb this hill here. If I had paid more attention to the news, which I try not to, I probably would have plugged my tractor in. It started fine, but I have a block heater. If it was going to be in the teens in a blizzard, I would typically plug it in. I usually don't, but in that condition I would. That's why I put a block heater in it and ran a cord out to my little shed. And same with these. I would get 3/4 of the way up and slide back down, and with those two vehicles sitting here, I almost wiped them out. And I said, well, I better put my chains on. I don't want to do it in the middle of a snowstorm, but I was going to, and then I just decided to take a break, find a different method. I didn't stop plowing. I just went and plowed an area I knew was flat and easy. Well, I thought about it, and it snowed a little bit more, gave me enough traction, and I was able to finish, and I'm still finishing today without my chains, so I can put them on my terms. Typically, I wait till everything's completely frozen in January, but it looks like after this storm, I might as well chain up the front. I wish I had filmed the cold start on the LS Swap Dodge so you could listen to the pistons rattle for 45 seconds. It doesn't hurt a thing, it warms up. It's been like this for a lot of miles. This is a 2011 Suburban, but this area where the bumper meets the rear hatch, if you don't clean the snow out of there, ice and snow will accumulate, and you can't get the hatch open, and it'll also want to bend the sheet metal. Not the greatest design. My tractor is a 2011 6010 Mahindra hydrostatic turbo. I don't need the turbo, but it was on there. A 5010 is the same tractor without a turbo. That would have sufficed, but you know, more power. The quick detach I love. I use it all the time. I can have the blade off and forks on it before you tell me you're coming with another piece of junk I don't need to unload. I took a plate, reinforced it, mounted up a 9.5 Fisher stainless V that I got a good deal on. It just needed a cutting edge. I sold all the headgear and the hydraulics, pretty much paid for the blade. I wanted a Fisher because they use double acting cylinders instead of a lot of other brands that have pressure out, spring return. So with no pressure, they're always in V. That would work, but this is better for functionality and plumbing. I V everything first and then I scoop it all. It gives me the ability to stack really high. That snowbank there is probably, the earth drops off, so it's probably as much as you see there. It's down that far too. I'm pushing off a hill right there, so. And by the time spring comes, that'll be, you know, as high as I can make it. My son loves to play in it. It makes a good place to build snow forts and do sledding and stuff. And I'll have these big piles all over the property. I did some research before I bought a Mahindra, and this brand of Mahindra, the cabbed tractors, are a rebranded TYM, which is a good tractor, and they're still made, so it's really not a Mahindra at all. This is I call it my $10,000 counterweight. It is handy for digging stuff, but it provides lots of weight on the back of the tractor. My tires are not filled. They should be, but they're not. It would help. But traction wise, I only chain up the front, and I'm really careful not to spin or catch or break the front axle and the front axle planetaries. So I have no desire to fix it. I just want to drive it. The outriggers drift down, so I have a ratchet strap and a couple axle tie downs to hold them up. Otherwise they would fall down, and not only the pain in the butt to have to pick them up every time I start the tractor, but they fall into the side of my hut that I keep it in. So that became a good solution. Easy to do. A few years ago I fixed up a giant double auger snowblower with the thought that I would plow down the hills and I'd just blow it all in the woods. I wouldn't have big piles, but it was a lot lighter than the backhoe, and it would have, again, got me in a situation where I needed to either chain up or add weight to the tires, and I really wasn't in love with the snowblower, so I sold it. Having this sticking out the back, you get really conscious of it being there. I occasionally mess up and back into things, but I try to keep it to a minimum. As far as maneuverability, it's in this position here, it's over 20 feet long, so it takes up some space. But inside, we got nice visibility all the way around. Heat and AC, stereo. I'm not suffering too much. And I bought it in 2011. This is 2020, and I've only put 283 hours on it, so it's non-emission, which I like. It's easy to maintain, and I'm hoping to last the rest of my life. I'm back inside my hut. I'm done for the day. All that stuff over there I've shoveled out. Both storage containers. The rest I'm going to hope it melts some. None of that stuff is going anywhere, and it's easy enough to dig out because I'm right at the edge of the trailers. The vehicles, the LS Swap Dodge and the Suburban and the trailers and stuff, if the roads are salty, I'm not going anywhere. Whatever has to be done, I'll have to wait for another day or hire somebody to do it. I just don't like road salt. I spent my 28 years working for a municipality, and I saw what that stuff does to things. Nasty. So anyway, I tilt the blade so only the corners are sitting on the ground, because I've learned, depending on the conditions, it'll freeze right into the ground, making it kind of difficult to pop it back out of there. So if only the corners of the blade are touching, it makes it easier. Inside the cab, I keep a tow strap, even though nobody's coming to save me if I get stuck. So the trick is to not get stuck this side. You know, my gloves, which I take with me, and my sling. I said I spent a lot of years working for a municipality, a lot of years learning to plow snow. I was lucky to get teamed up with an old guy who taught me some things. The most important lesson when you're plowing: keep the wheels under you. You have a plow on the front. There's no reason why the wheels should be in snow. Excellent lesson. I use that all the time. I'll get in a situation like yesterday when I started sliding around. I thought I was going to slide into a snowbank. I thought of the old guy. His name was Victor. And he didn't say much, but when he did, you should listen. Keep the wheels under you. Of course, the night Victor told me that, he was giving me a ride to go pick up a front-end loader. We've been working about 4 days, and we were winging back at the same time. We were expecting more snow. It was a really big winter, big snow amounts. And he rolled it into the ditch, my side down. I was standing on the passenger window. That's when he told me to keep the wheels under it. Kind of funny. Nobody got hurt. We pulled it out. We were good. It was a 10-wheel dump truck, L9000, 3406 Cat. 11708 double L Road Ranger. What else you want to know about it? Oh boy. Up behind the garage where I'm doing some logging, I gingerly am now using this area for a snow dump. I forgot what was under there. There might be little stumps, but I made myself a little pile, so I'll be able to find it next time. This is where my pile traditionally is. This is all the logs we cut. The goal is to cut enough to where this pile is. I just did this a minute ago to be able to push off that hill. Again, trying to prevent these piles from getting too big, because this pile here there's been some winters where it'll come all the way out to the edge of the hut here and be about yay high. It's ridiculous, but I'm hoping this is not one of those winters, and the old future projects just sit here waiting for the call. I just noticed this debris right here. Used to be a big plastic tote. I never had the cover for it, and it was getting kind of weathered. And I usually set it over my trailer tongue to keep it out of the weather. Well, last time I used the trailer, I set it right here. And now some of it's here. Some of it's up in that pile over there. I'll dig it all out next spring. Casualties. When I'm cleaning up, I come down the hill and I swoop really close to the garage. I didn't get that close today. It looks a lot closer in the tractor. But I got pretty close right there. But I'm looking for scratches and I don't see any. It makes me mad when I do stuff like that and actually hit something. There's no need to. But sometimes you can't help yourself. I used to work with another old guy at the municipality. He plowed the parking lots and stuff where all our cars were parked, and he would shave the snow off your license plate. When you got ready to go home at the end of the shift, there was no problem getting out. He passed on, unfortunately, and different people started plowing the parking lot, and you had to shovel your way out at this point. So he was good. Now let's talk about a couple subjects that makes intelligent people absolutely lose their mind. If you live in an area where it snows, if you go to your state's DOT website, there'll be a picture of a truck with the wing plow installed. That's the plow on the right. There's a plow on the front of the truck, and there's a wing plow on the right. And they'll show it going under the mailbox. The mailbox is hanging, swinging, not sitting on a post. And they'll show you the height it has to be to meet their requirements and the post office. As I mentioned, almost 28 years at a municipality, every storm, hundreds of people will call complaining about their mailbox getting hit. And it's typically not even hit, but that's another subject. I'm going to cover it here real quick. The right-of-way for any road, you can look it up in your state. Whoever owns the road and maintains it has 20 feet from the center line on both sides, where nothing is allowed to be installed. It's theirs, not yours to do what you want with. However, concessions are made for power lines, utility poles, and mailboxes. Way back, every plow truck had a driver and a wingman. The wingman ran the wing plow. He had his own controls. He'd pick it up and down. The truck was typically wider. If you put the left side of the front blade on the center line, it was probably half a lane wider than the real road. With budget cuts and whatnot, now the driver is typically alone in the truck. And the trucks are now set up, at least we did ours. So if you have the left front of the blade on the front of the truck on the center line, you're pretty much at the edge of the road and no more. So the truck will fit down the lane. If you have oncoming traffic and you're a plow driver, the road is snow covered, people lose their mind when they can't see the double yellow line or the single yellow line, and they're in the middle of the road. You want to hit that car or just not worry about what's in the ditch. So sometimes you have to do that to avoid an accident. And that mailbox is not important. A head-on with a car is. But the majority of the time, it's just heavy slush. The front blade and the wing are a funnel, and the snow is exiting rapidly. And if it's wet, heavy snow, it's got some force behind it. It'll do damage. If you ever follow a plow truck down the road, any weak mailbox, typically mounted on top of an old rotten post, is gonna, well, probably not make it. It's gonna be in the ditch. And then subsequent passes by the plow truck, it's gonna be buried. People also get these wonderful ideas. They're gonna install steel, a boat crankshaft, a cement post to hold up their box, and that'll fix them, right? Well, all you've done is install the deadly fixed object, and if there's any injury involving your mailbox post that you put in, you'll be held accountable for it. So you can look that up too, but I've been through this 1,000 times. Our public works director would go around and had a little letter he'd give to people explaining about a deadly fixed object and how that's going to play out in court if somebody gets hurt on your mailbox post. And then there's the old complaint that the snowplow filled in my driveway after I got done cleaning my driveway. Well, here's what's really going on. The town you live in is divided up into sections, runs, if you will, and every driver has an area of responsibility, typically about 20 miles. That's 40 lane miles, and it will take him or her 3 to 4 hours minimum to go around both directions. And this happens from the time it starts snowing until about 4 hours after it stops. So if it stops snowing at your house, you can expect the truck to come by for the last time during that storm within the next 3 or 4 hours. Expect it. Don't be mad when it happens. They're just out doing their job. If you see one of your town or city trucks riding around with the gear up in the air, the plow and the wing not touching the ground, don't get upset about that either. They have an area of responsibility. The cutting edges on the front blade and the wing don't last that long. These are hours they're dragging on the road. We ran minimum double cutting edge, and if the budget allowed, a carbide one first and then a mild steel one. And you might get a couple storms out of it. You don't want to have to change that in the middle of the storm. You have an area of responsibility. Occasionally we'd drop the gear and help out somebody on a wide road. If they were in the middle, you'd take the ditch, but typically everybody has an area of responsibility, and they're going to drive to that with the gear in the air and set it down where they belong. From the moment it starts snowing, every storm, the trucks load with salt that have major runs. This is how we did it in our town anyway. And they go on their salt run. The plow and wing are up in the air, and they're dropping salt right down the middle of the road. Then they go back and put on a load of dirt mixed with salt, about 75-25, and pretty much kept that on for ballast. You do occasionally do intersections and stuff during the storm while it's snowing. Sand isn't going to do you any good. You're going to continue to plow it off the road, but they would do areas where it was required, try to keep traffic moving. At the end of the storm, if you time it just right, you're out of sand, you put enough out, you don't have to go back and grind it all off because that takes time. As soon as it stops snowing, you're going to get another load of salt. If you're on a major road, go put out another round of salt, and then go back and get more sand for the ballast, and you're going to go finish plowing your route for the last time. Out of courtesy, we didn't typically operate out of a 48-hour window after a storm, but we use that 48 hours to slowly go around and push the banks back, called shelving, where you hold the wing halfway up and you cut that in half and you push the top half back. The next storm you can flip it up onto that, and then you got to shelf again, and so on and so forth to keep your ditch line pretty much where it is all winter long. But during that operation, it was low speed. The truck is way off in the ditch, and we would pick up at every driveway if possible and try not to fill your driveway then. But that's not feasible during a storm when you're going relatively fast. Nowadays, people don't stay home. They expect the road to be black all the time. We continue to put more chemicals on the road. That's why cars ride out more than they used to. And people expect to not be delayed at all with weather. That's what the public expects today. At least that's what the people that call and complain tell you.
I never wanted to be a plow driver. But when I went to work for the municipality, the opportunity was there to go get my license, my commercial driver's license. I took that opportunity to go ahead and get an A license with all the endorsements. I just took every test that was available and the harder road test, and then I had to surrender that when I got a school bus license because that's a whole nother license. So I just went and got every license known to man. Looking to the future, it's always good to have, a way to keep employed. So the first storm comes around, and I'm a mechanic, but I'm available if I didn't see it playing out like that, I guess, but next thing you know, you're in a neighborhood, it's dark, you've never seen it in the daylight, and you're just trying to not do too much damage. There's two different distinct plow routes. You got the high-speed ones and the neighborhoods. I like them both. They both have their merits. It was fun. Also fun in the spring of every year, they'd have a skills contest. It really has nothing to do with plowing snow, and most of the guys wouldn't enter it. It was for the drivers. You had mechanics on one side of the wall, you had drivers on the other. So the first year, as a lark, myself and another mechanic volunteered to do it, and we won the county and got to go to the state finals. I over the years, did that with 3 different partners. I could always do well at the local competition where each driver did the whole obstacle course, and then you swap seats and you did it again. At the state finals, it was you changed drivers halfway through the course. I would always volunteer to do the backup portion because I like backing up, and we just never did that well. But I have the T-shirts and the hats to go with it, and a lot of good memories because it was really fun. It didn't really play into. You had to have the control of the truck, and it's amazing when you're trying to. The deal was to knock a tennis ball in 3 different positions next to like a hydrant or a car, and to get as close as you possibly can, knock the tennis ball off. They had the blades off the ground this much, so it would go over the plywood where the ball was sitting, and you got points for. Perfect score would be you would hit all the obstacles and move them out of the way, and then the added points for missing. Kind of interesting. They still do it, and believe it or not, there's all the states that compete in it. If you win your county and then you win your state, you go to the national competition in Idaho or Colorado, wherever it was. I always thought that would be fun, but I was just a lowly old mechanic willing to compete. I love competing regardless of what it is. So it's still a good part of the day. I'm going to do some mechanical stuff now. I hope you got something out of this video. It never goes the way I expect, but here we are. We put a lot of knowledge out there, and for anybody that got this far, thanks for watching. Next time.